And then this is the turning point. He's like, I am going to forsake my people.
I'm done with them.
I will be back.
I'm like, Arias, did you have to forsake them to their faces? You know?
Did you just like never go
Couldn't
home?
you have just Homer Simpsoned into that hedge, you know? Slowly backed up.
I'm Melody Carlisle.
And I'm Sabrina Bradley.
And this is Heaving Bosoms. This is the podcast where best friends recap romance novels and other kissing media that makes us swoon, snark, and refills our cups.
Whether you've read the book or are coming in blind, we'll lay bare every delicious scene and revel in the tropes and subgenres that make romance amazing.
All right, listener, strap in and strap on. Headphones are highly recommended.
Hello.
Sabrina.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I have hit a new level of sleep terrorism.
What the fuck does that mean?
Well, I'm a sleep terrorist. I've talked about it on the pod several times. One time I woke up Michael just to say, have you seen my mango?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Uh-huh.
That kind of stuff, okay?
What are you doing now?
So when there's like a late recording, sometimes I'll voluntarily sleep in the guest room so that I don't wake him up when I go to bed, right?
Okay.
So last week, I feel like we had a couple of recordings in a row or something. And then also there was one night where I was snoring, apparently, which is horrifying. And so I spent like a couple of nights in the guest room and then came back to our bed, right? Mm-hmm. And apparently somebody was feeling deprived of physical touch.
Okay.
Because I guess all night I was just like a heat-seeking missile tracking Michael down in bed, being like, I should put my hand on you, but then I'm going to flinch and scratch. And then like, you know, like always, I had to be touching him. And then finally, when he like shrimped down, you know, he like
to try
got in the
and get
fetal
away
position.
from you?
Yeah. And like moved down in the bed in his sleep. I guess I started hooking him with my big toe.
That is the most heinous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, what? That doesn't even make sense. And he was like, I know that.
Oh my God.
So
yeah,
we've learned that I can't be deprived of physical touch like that. I need to, it gets bad. It gets bad if I'm desperate. I don't know what to say to anybody, frankly.
I mean, like, there are worse things that you could do, but that's up there.
Are there? Like hooking somebody with your big toenail? That doesn't seem great.
Truly. It's fine. We're just going to talk today about lots of things that I hate. It's fine.
Oh my God. Listener, I am baffled. I'm baffled. I remain baffled.
I love it.
And I can't wait to find out how this worked. But first, hello. We have to shout out some amazing patrons. Yeah, we're doing Patreons. Because there are people who join the Patreon, and it's so sweet that they support us and they want to help out to make the show what it is, and maybe even better, you know, someday. Who knows? Mm-hmm. So, hey, thanks and welcome to Lindsay J. and Divine Kitty Cat,
Lauren B. and Fluffy Black Cat,
N. and Laron H.,
Richard C.L. and Aaron F.,
Angelique I. and Jen,
Rebecca K. and Rebecca R. Hello.
Welcome.
And speaking of Patreon, this week, Friday, we have an author hang with M.A. Wardell, and I'm very excited about it. We're going to be doing Drag Race trivia, which is going to be a hot mess because I've never seen an episode of Drag Race in my life. Mm-hmm. And then we're just going to double down because the week after that, Friday, we are watching the Lizzie McGuire movie.
Yeah, because apparently I wasn't a proper millennial girl when I was a youth, in my youth, my childhood. Yeah. I can't say youth, though, because that means anywhere between 18 and 25, according to Sabrina.
It has to, okay? For my sake, it needs to be 18 to 25 in that one very specific scenario.
Yeah, so in my childhood, listener.
Yes. I know this is totally kind of off topic, but also on topic. Have I told you that Hilary Duff was my first crush?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And you went to her concert.
Mm-hmm. My very first concert was Hilary Duff.
I love it. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Let the rain fall down.
Spread my wings. Let it wash away. Yeah.
Okay, well, Mira, our heroine, gets washed away in a lot of different ways in this book.
No joke.
And I don't understand how you managed to finish the book, let alone love it. That's not a commentary on the book. I loved book. I thought book was great. That's a commentary on at least...
so good. And it is full of all of my worst fears.
Yes, I'm baffled. Like, when we start, listener, so one of Sabrina's biggest fears is just like the deep, the dark, deep ocean or body of water or whatever.
By the way, listener, the book we're doing is Whispers of the Deep by Emma Hamm.
Yes, that's the one.
And I did talk about this book way back at the beginning of the year because it was my first book that I read this year that I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted and needed.
I'm shocked because the very first chapter opens up. She's trying to fix a broken rivet in like a 2-story high window that's just looking out into the black ocean.
Yeah, so not only is the fear of heights coming in to play, it's also the fear of the vast, the deep.
The vast, wide open deep.
By the way, I just really needed to share with you that the acknowledgement is for all my nerdy girls out there. You can't tell me you weren't thinking this while you played BioShock, and I felt very called out. Yeah, so she's being mansplained. So she's an engineer in this like underwater city called Beta, and she's basically being mansplained on how to weld, even though she's been doing it like her entire life because her boss is a fucking asshole. Okay?
Yeah.
The men, the human men in this book, there's not a single one worth shit.
No, they're all awful. They're either super lame or like the villainiest, terrible, evil man.
Capital V villain.
Yeah. All the men in this book are the worst. That's the answer.
Yeah.
It's wild.
But yeah, so she's like just doing her job, and it is explicit that she's just staring out all of the weight of the entire ocean, and she's in this gigantic glass dome room, and there's a crack in it.
Yeah.
Abso-fucking-lutely not.
So not only is there a rivet that's leaking, like in between panes of glass, but then one of the other panes has that crack in it. And there's literally no way I could participate in that.
One thing I did fully appreciate about this author, though, is that in the acknowledgement, she's straight up like, don't come at me about science, okay? I don't care.
No.
Just...
That's not what we're here for.
No, we're not here for science.
Keep your science to yourself.
Exactly. And it's just, it makes me so happy because she's just like, fuck it, you know? Yeah, there's a crack. And no, it's not gonna collapse until
she sees a bioluminescence out in that vast deep, and then that bioluminescence gets closer, and it's a full-on Undine.
His black tail, so long it tangled in the kelp, was at least 10 feet long. Blue slashes of fins so deep they blended in with the water, undulated all along the black scales. So basically, he's a mermaid.
He's a hot mermaid.
Oh my God, so hot. So hot. Maybe that's why I love this book so much, is I love the idea of a hero that means I don't need to be afraid of the water, you know?
Ooh, yeah, because he'll protect you.
Oh boy.
You know?
Oh boy,
he
will
might
he?
cook you in that salt water for way too long than your human skin can handle.
Okay, the body horror that takes place in this book is truly horrifying. But yeah.
Okay, wait. So in the first, 8 chapters or so, all he is pissed off and fierce, okay? He is like the most intense warrior. And so he sees her and he comes up and he like bangs on the glass and nothing happens. And she's like, catch my farts. It's not even working. And so then she sees him swim up and away, up into the ocean, and then just turn around and make a beeline straight for that crack so that he hits it at like 93 nautical miles a minute. Knots.
Yep.
93 knots.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of them.
That's science.
And he bursts it.
Yeah, so she runs when she realizes what he's about to do, and she just barely makes it into a tunnel and then drops the blast door. But now that room is ka-fucked.
And he's in there, and he's like trying to get at her through the door of the window. He wants to eat her or something.
My worst nightmare melody.
Shit, bro. I was not well during that scene. And I don't even have like a particular fear of the sea, you know?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know how you made it through this.
And so every chapter alternates point of view.
Between Mira and Argus.
Yep.
Arius.
And
sure, man.
Hey, listener, I got a little fangirly and messaged the author to get pronunciations. Because usually Melody fixes the pronunciations by listening to the audiobook, but the audiobook doesn't come out until next month?
Next week, listener.
Next
I scheduled
week.
This a week before the audiobook comes out. So I had to eyeball read this. And it was hard. It was tough to do, to eyeball read it, even though the book was amazing. Okay, so anyway, now it's our turn to see what his brain is like. And he's like, I am a warrior of the people of water, and I'm here to kill all of these anthromos. What are they called?
Acromos.
Acromos, that's what it is. Or acromos, I don't know. And he's always looking for some way to like sabotage the city. And other Undine, what she calls the people of water, have successfully drowned a whole city once.
Uh-huh.
They just say they sabotaged one of those cities until everybody was floating, and it was bad. And so that's his goal for this. And he's like the head warrior of his pod. Mm-hmm. And the very first scene, he finds like a pipe, right? Doesn't he do something to a pipe?
So the evil mermaid, as they are referenced in my notes, they're just mermaids because voice to text was like, fuck the word Undine. Mm-hmm. So their whole plan is to basically sabotage the airflow for this city. Yeah. And then force all of the people to hide in one specific area so that they can just take them all out at once. And he successfully destroys his pipe. The rest of his little people are attacking other pipes. And then he gets a little cocky and goes up and starts taunting the humans through the glass. And then this little robot arm comes out of nowhere and grabs him and pulls him into the city. What the fuck?
And so now he's just like in there, and he thinks he's like drowning in the air, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes him a while to remember that he needs to expel all of the water out of his rib gills in order to start breathing through his mouth gills or whatever, his mouth lungs.
Because he has two sets of lungs. He also has two hearts. He has
a mermaid one and a man one, I think is how that works.
Yep, that's exactly how that works. So we have already stated that her boss is literally the worst, okay?
Yeah.
He gets on the elevator because they all realize that the Undine is in there. All of the people, all of the engineers down where Arias just got pulled in, get on the elevator and leave without her.
She's like running down the aisle being like, hold the elevator. And they're like, go fuck yourself. And they close it up. Meanwhile, there's this killer merman right there. And she already knows he's got a vendetta. They've met before. All right. And it wasn't good. And so he's like army crawling over to her.
Oh my God. This is literally, God, it's true. I don't know I don't know why I love this book so much.
Monster out of your worst nightmares. And then she's like, well, all of the air in this, thing is already going to be broken. This like set of hallways, right? That's the one that he sabotaged. And so if she can't figure out a way to get them both out, they're both going to die.
Well, and she's like trying to mime at him, basically, her plan. And she's like, I will open up the thing and we will go in the water and then you take me to that elevator over there. And then she pulls out her welder and starts fucking with the rivets and melting them. And then she basically passes out because guess what? Welders need oxygen to make fire. And so
it ate up all her oxygens.
And then Arias straight up just like body slams the panel.
Where the panes of glass have already been melted. Yeah. And he manages to break it apart. But she's already passed out, right? Like she's toast right now. Yeah. So he grabs her and he does his part of the deal. He does it. It's wild.
And guess what?
What?
The way that she gets oxygen is he gives her mouth to mouth.
Oh, golly, he just has to lock lips with her. And we find out because he is a voyeur. He has been doing a bunch of surveillance on them to try and figure out their weaknesses or the structural weaknesses. And so we find out way later on in the book that he's like seen humans kissing before and he doesn't know why they do it and he doesn't understand. I love this trope. Like one of them has no idea what kissing is so great. But anyway, this mouth-to-mouth thing happens, and, like, it feels good on him, and it keeps her alive. Wild.
He'd taken a risk in letting her live now that she'd seen him, but the moment his lips had touched hers as he breathed air into her lungs, he'd known it was the right choice. Deep in his bones, he felt the rightness as though the ancients of the ocean had touched his heart and told him that she needed to live. Y'all, okay, I can't, okay, so, like, I cannot possibly express how much I love this book. This is probably the fastest reread I've ever done in my life.
Really?
Yeah, because it's been less than 6 months since I read it for the first time.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah.
And no regrets. No regrets. Listener, when Melody, we were trying to figure out what book we were going to do next, she was like, what about that Whispers of the Deep book you like? And I was like, sold. Yeah. That's it. That's what we're doing.
Anyway. I was like, Sabrina, how about we do that book you love? You want to read that again, right? Let's do it.
God. And listener, the second book, I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sad because the next book doesn't come out until October. Psych. It came out May 15th. And it's so good, listener.
Incredible.
So he heads home. He's certain of his victory, blah, 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 blah. And then his brother, Deos, comes out of nowhere and body slams him. And he finds out he's the only one who successfully broke the air pipe because the humans knew they were coming and somebody died. One of the Undines died because they just pew-pewed him in the water.
Yeah, they got big attacked because the humans have firepower.
Yeah, so he basically gets dragged by his brother back home to their, like, pod house, right? There's this creepy fucking Undine lady who is half jellyfish or something like that, named Matira?
I said Matira, but yeah.
Matira, yeah. So basically, he gets given the goal. The plan has changed, and now it's time.
Well, because they can smell her on him. I just found that to be very important to me, Melody. They can smell her all over him. And like most of them are like super grossed out because they've been fighting these people for centuries, ?
Something like that.
It's a lot. Yeah. And so, yeah, tell them Maytiris does something.
Yes, she decides that he needs to go steal that human that he smells like and get answers out of her because she doesn't smell scared. She just smells. She's just a stinky little human, a stinky little acromo.
She's just a lady who is comfy with him now. And so she's like, go get answers from this human. Does she actually say to steal her or like make friends with her?
Great question.
Regardless, I think this special mission is make friends with this person and like get information out of them. And Arias goes above and beyond, frankly. You know,
yes.
Arias, like, if he's gonna do something, it's gonna be to the nth degree.
So extra, and I love him. He is everything to me.
Yep, that makes sense.
So she is this engineer inventor lady, and she creates this thing called a rebreather, which is so that she can breathe underwater. And they have this fancy new wetsuit style thing. And so she goes out into the water with this panel to go replace the other panel, because basically the area that flooded when he got pulled in is how you get to the engineer quarters. So everyone is basically camping out in the cafeteria, which sounds awful.
It truly does. Yeah, it sounds like one of those fasting lock-ins in like a church in middle school. Oof.
Yeah. And like, to reiterate, all of her coworkers, everybody in this city is the worst.
Yeah.
They're all fucking terrible.
Yeah. So as she's doing that, he's hunting her. And when he watched her, he followed her through the system of tunnels that they use. And he has not liked, because in order to do this like special mission or whatever, she's been hanging out with this human man. And she's been going into rooms without windows with this human man. And Arias has some feelings about it that he can't quite put his finger on, but they're not positive, And as he's following them through these tunnels, he finds out that there are what are called moon pools at different portions of the building where like it opens up in the ground or in the bottom of the
floor
structure. Yeah, thank you. Good Lord. That was rough.
You were fighting for your life, Melody.
It really was. Yeah, the floor opens up, and that's how they can like kersploosh into the ocean. And he's like, they've been hiding this with all of their trash. And it's like, no, they're just awful humans who throw trash out the windows. You know what I mean? And then it ends up at the bottom. Anyway, so yeah, he hunts her as she's swimming along, and he was really interested in this second skin, this scaly boy wetsuit situation that she's got on.
She's like, she looks all silvery and shiny and slippery.
She looks familiar, and she's got these fins on that he's like, whoa, her two tails are usually really dumb. But with those fins on, she's like mildly competent. This is incredible.
So he then realizes that she's out there to go fix what they had broken. And he's like, oh, hell to the no. And then he just yoinks her.
Yeah.
He's just like...
He just absconds with an entire human and like goes down into the like he goes into a current, and that takes him down.
Well, and she starts panicking.
Of course she does.
Because she's a flimsy little human. And so if she goes too far down, she's going to pop like a balloon.
Right.
And he has no idea why she's freaking out. Because like at first she's just kind of like, she is shockingly calm.
She is too cool for school.
He grabs her and she's like, oh, it's that Undine. And then she doesn't panic until she realizes he's going to take her into the abyss. Okay?
Right.
To be clear, listener.
Relatable content.
I would have been losing my fucking mind the minute you could not pay me enough to get me out of that city.
No, I hear you. And so as she manages to like get away from him and goes into like these little rock crevices. Oh, that's right. I forgot. She has a little knife in her boot or whatever. And then she stabs him. Yes.
My worst fucking nightmare. She gets sucked into a current. Okay, listener, let's just like line them up.
Her fourth worst fucking nightmare just happens now.
So she gets sucked into this current that pulls her down into the abyss, like this canyon. And it is so deep down that there's no light. The only thing that works is her little headlamp. And she crawls into basically like some lava flow shit that is cutting her because it's so sharp and spiky. And then when she turns, her fucking flashlight on her head breaks. And now she's just in the deep, dark, hiding in a little hole.
Pitch black.
And it is... I hated it. I hate it so much.
Meanwhile, she's hiding from him, which like Mira, I don't know, man. Like, you seem to have gotten out of the frying pan and into the fire. You know what I mean?
You've made this worse for yourself, dear.
Yeah, I don't know how she expects to get back. But the only thing she can see in this absolute blackness every once in a while is a little bit of bioluminescent blue. And she's like, oh, fuck, it's him. I gotta stay quiet. Meanwhile, he can smell her from 3 miles away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? He knows exactly where she is. He's just too big to get to her. And so he just starts smashing the rocks.
Well, he also, notably, she smells like fear for the first time, and he hates it. He does not like that little acrymo smelling like fear. So, turns out, they basically talk like whales, the ending. They're like, but it's super duper loud, and so he's hollering at her basically while she's hiding in this hole, and she's like, shut up, it hurts my ears,
ouch, town.
Like, he's like, excuse me, I'm the quiet brother. How could you?
Which is hilarious, Sabrina, because he's the quiet brother at the first part of the book, and then toward like the middle and the end, he starts talking about himself as like the one who talks. And so I'm wondering about his sense of, his sense of self-reflection.
He's not the most reliable narrator, like,
yeah,
I think it's that sense. I think he's chatty. Right? He's a chatty person, but he's quiet. Like, he's soft-spoken is the way I took it.
Okay. I like that. But
she does not think he's soft-spoken. And in fact, she's like, you are so fucking loud, dude. You're hurting my ears. And he is so offended. But he's like, he's whispering to her now. And like, he's like, why? This is so quiet. You can't even hear me. But also, bud, why are you talking to her in the first place?
She can't understand you anyway. Just grab the bitch, So he does. He reaches in there at some point and grabs her out, and she loses her fins.
Okay. One of my favorite fucking tropes when it comes to monster alien romance is when the fucking alien is disgusted by humans. So she loses her fin, and he looks at her and sees her feet and her little toes, and he is like, they were mangled, cut at the ends as if someone had taken a sharp stone to her flippers for decoration. They were so small, too. Was she deformed? Was that why her people had sent her out on her own? But yeah, so she tries to escape, but he doesn't let her and grabs onto her. And she is now clinging to him like a little barnacle because she's her feet are freezing cold because they're God knows how many miles under the surface.
It's so cold down there.
And she doesn't know. She doesn't know about
those toesicles. She finds a little pocket of warmth right by his hip, and she puts her little toesicles into his hip flap, his hip fin.
This is the equivalent of her like shoving her hands in between his thighs for warmth.
Absolutely. Getting those toes right under his ball sack, you know? You're right in the taint region. It's nice and warm there.
And he's like, whoa!
He's like, whoa! He's like, whoa! This is a very intimate touch. She has no idea, but this is getting me very horny.
So he takes her to this like hidden cave that he knows about.
Oh, it's so cool.
And she's a little in awe, right? Because there's like all of these glowing bioluminescent plants and it's beautiful. And then she gets out of the water and now he's horrified because she starts pulling off the wetsuit and he's like, oh my God, ew, she's shedding.
The skin.
Her skin. I love this so much. And the funniest thing though is, dude, you've been stalking humans for years. You know that's not what their skin looks like. Clearly it's clothing, bro.
Right.
He watched with horror as he ripped the strange things off her face, showing that they had left deep red marks on her flesh. Then she pulled at the second skin around her face, slowly peeling it off her head and revealing all that red hair
in front of him.
like she was birthing herself. It was monstrous to watch. Stomach queasy, he shook his head when she chattered at him. He much preferred listening to her when they were underwater and she had both the weight of the ocean and that contraption muffling her horrid voice. He hates her and thinks she's so fucking gross, but he's also fascinated by her.
Fascinated. Cannot get enough. Can't get enough. Oh my God. So he's like, it looks like you're fine. You've got some light from these plants down here, and like you've got water everywhere. Congratulations, human. And like you're going to be fine for a while. And so he skedoodles.
Yeah, specifically because her horrible voice is giving him a headache. Yeah. He's like, I gotta go, bro.
Yeah.
You suck.
I can't with you anymore. I tried to make this an easy kidnapping, and you just had to fuck it all up, man.
Yeah, so she's pissed because she's like, he left me here to starve and die. What the fuck? But then she discovers a computer at the back of the room. And so she turns it on and boom, light.
It turns out this is a cave that her ancestors, her Chromo ancestors found and turned into like a cool hangout space. They like turned it into the community center. You know, there's light, there's a cot, maybe there's a foosball table. I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably. Almost certainly.
I think so.
Caves just come with, absolutely. So he shows back up with just a whole cod and he just chucks it at her. So he's like hiding in the water with his little eyeballs.
The amount of times, listener, that he will slowly surface until only his eyeballs are showing above the water.
He's just like
and his eyeballs are all black. Everything's black on his eyes. And he thinks it's so fucking weird that there's white in her eyes. He dislikes it. He's like, it's creepy as fuck.
There's nothing about humans that he isn't. No. Like, he is fascinated and horrified simultaneously. Humans are the worst. Okay? So then he comes up and just chucks this fish at her. Just this whole fish. She doesn't realize it's a fish that he threw at her, and so she starts looking around for something to throw back at him. Like, how fucking dare you throw something at me? And then she realizes the fish is there. She kills the fish.
She feels terrible about it.
And then she's like, what do I do with this fish,
And then she looks at him and she's like, I don't know. She's like, she's miming her welder to be like, I need fire for this.
Yeah, because how do you explain to a sea creature what fire is?
Yeah. Yeah. He has seen her welder, though. And so he goes and he gets her a welder. And it's like rusted as fuck. And then he's like, she doesn't know this, but we have now enacted 2 of the ancient mating rituals that have basically gone out of fashion for my people. 1, I hunted her and I caught her. And then 2, I brought her treasures.
Treasures.
And every time he talks to her about it, he's like, what, do you want more junk? Do you need me to go get you more junk? It's incredible.
Yeah.
So he takes his one claw And he guts this fish in front of her and like cleans it out a bit. Yeah, he cleans out her meal for her. And then he gives her back the cod and she cooks it and eats it. And she's like, okay, I guess this is good.
Well, then he starts to leave because the human is fed. The human is fed and watered. It's time for me to go. And she's horrified and she panics and she's trying to communicate with him. And she's like, Mira, pointing at herself like, I am Mira. And he just looks at her weird and swims away. He's like, I'm done with this human. I gotta go.
He just dives away and like splashes her a little bit with his tail. It's so rude.
So when he comes back, she's asleep, which like, that's incredible to me. I don't think I could have fallen asleep in this cave with a killer mermaid after me. You know what I mean? Like, I guess he already stole me, so like, what else can he possibly do? But like,
right.
It can't get much worse than this.
I mean, he could gut you like that fish, you know?
But
like, do you want to see that coming?
Dead, you know?
Right. And so he's like, these Acromos, they rest so much more than the people of the water.
So while he's sleeping, or she's sleeping, he decides to go take a little Undine nap. And he is very confused because she sets his mind at ease. And it's intriguing to him that she's not afraid of him. It's honorable. Disgusting, yes, but honorable just the same. So he comes back up and he loves to goad her, like clearly. And so he flicks water at her when she's up and moving around. And she gets all frustrated and looks and glares at him. And oh, how he adored that expression. She wanted to fight him. He could see that. She wanted to reach into the water, rip him out of it, and gut him just like he'd gutted that fish for her. And he's just like, I love it. He's like, I love her mad.
Yeah, he's like, she's so fragile and yet so brave that she will like come at me still.
Yeah. So then he's like, oh, yeah, come in the water and I'll gut you, blah, blah, blah. And then she throws a rock at his head. And he's just like, as he's like telling her, he's like, the waters will froth and fill with your blood.
Oh my God.
He's like,
and then he's like, dude? She doesn't know this, but the people of water never back down from a fight. And so he launches himself out of that pool like Free Willy and grabs onto her foot. Okay?
And just chucks her in the water.
It's so rude.
Then, while she's in the water, her hair's like flowing in the water and he's under there looking at her. She was lovely. Damn it. He hadn't wanted to think about it, but she really was. And like, he's like, his nature screamed that he had claimed her. This woman was his. He'd hunted her. He'd bested her. And now she was his to do with as he wished. And I'm just like,
yeah.
And then he starts fluttering. His little gills start like,
oh my God,
flutter, 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 which is the mating.
Yeah. He's showing off. He's preening for her, okay? And like, he can't help it. This is just a natural reaction. And he's like, gills, keep it together. Like, this is
come on, dude.
Doing this with her. What are you doing?
He is popping a mermaid boner right in front of her.
And it's all of his gills because he's got neck gills and then he's got rib gills and then he's got like other fins and stuff. And all of them stand erect and they start fluttering around being like, I'm the prettiest. Come fuck me.
Oh my God. I love it so much. So he's also pissed off because he went back to her city after stealing her. And he's like, I can't believe that nobody gives a shit that I took this human. Does nobody care about her? And it's like, no, Arius. Nobody fucking cares about her.
No,
like,
not a single person.
You stole this shitty human that nobody cares about.
Yeah. You should know that she's like the most underling of the underlings.
And then when he gets back, she is stripping out of her wetsuit again. And he is fascinated by all that beautiful flesh that he can see. And she tells him.
It's so smooth.
She tells him to turn around. And at first, he doesn't. He's like, maybe I'll just pretend that, like, I don't understand what you're asking me to do.
I don't speak your language. I don't know.
And then she like makes it very, very clear, like, turn the fuck around. And so he does. But then he's like, he. I'm gonna turn around before she's done undressing so I can catch a glimpse. But when he turns around, she's in a blankie, so he can't see anything but her ugly little fins.
Oh, those little fins. They're out. And then he goes and gets her more junk.
Yeah, because he asks, like, she basically makes it clear. So his little gills are flaring and he's like preening.
They're everywhere.
And then how could she know it was the correct mating ritual for her to request that he bring her treasure? I will bring you more junk. And then he just swims away.
Oh my God, because she's been looking all throughout this cave being like, I'm an engineer. If I can fix this computer, I might be able to send a signal to like my human pals and see if anybody is in the mood to rescue me or anything. But everything's rusted. Like the only things that really work are the lights. And the welder, she got to work as well when he brought that to her.
Yes. So he gets back and she's hit like the apathy and depression part of her kidnapping, right?
Yeah.
And so she's just like laying there staring at the ceiling. Well, when he gets back, he starts trying to speak to her. But to her, it sounds like horrifying singing. And she's like, it was like he was singing to her. And she didn't like any guy that pinned her down and tried to sing, of all things. And I was like, this is when
we don't
Mira
like being
is all
serenaded.
Of us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't serenade me.
Yeah. So he brought her junk. He brought her a box off of the floor of the ocean. And it turns out that box is a little bitty research android. And she's super excited. And it wakes up.
It's an AI. Yeah.
And it wakes
up. She has a friend.
And like Wall-E style eyes pop out of the top of the box. And it looks over at Arius and takes a picture. And he's like, nah!
And it like, flashes. And so he, poof, goes down again. He's gone. Puff of smoke.
And then she asks this little android, she's like, can I call you Bite? And it is the happiest little robot. It's like wiggling because it's so happy to have a personal name.
Y'all, Dobby just got that dirty sock, you know? Like, that's what happened here. He was like, my classification doesn't get names, but if you would like to give me a name, then yes.
And then we find out that it got stuck on the bottom of the ocean, and so it's just been stuck down there for like a century, watching things go by and life happen. And it's been so lonely because it can't talk to anybody. And it's just been, and the best part is all of the androids and AIs in this book, because we meet another one in the second book, and Bitsy's even better.
Oh.
Anyway, well, not better. Bite is perfection, okay?
Sure.
But all of the AIs in this book are programmed to have like a quirk, like a funny little personality. And they all get like their feelings hurt really easily. They're all very sensitive. No. And it's just the funniest thing. And they're so sassy. And I love them.
Yeah. So now she's got a friend, and she starts figuring out that like this robot Bite is only like a research. It takes pictures. It catalogs things. It's like a database boy. But she finds out that it can take on the functions of other androids. And one of the things it can do is listen to a language and learn it, and then pop out these language chips that they can put behind their ear, and it hurts like a bitch for like 3 seconds. And then they're like, oh my God, I understand every single thing that you're saying. It's like a babble fish or whatever. And so she's like, can you learn the Undine language? And he's like, yeah, if he talks enough in front of me, I'll learn the whole thing and I'll be able to give it to you. And then she's like, but also give me an English one and I will try to get it onto this merman. And Bite is so adorable. Bite is like, that's a murder merman. Have you seen his claws and teeth? Like, this is a bad idea.
He is going to fucking kill you.
Yeah, because it's going to hurt. It's going to feel like an attack. And oh my God, the way that this happens.
So he has to like pep talk himself to come back because of this weird little box, right? He's like, what the hell? Did I accidentally bring her like a human god? that she can worship now. And so like he pops up with his little eyeballs just over the water again. And like he watches her talking to Bite and he's like, oh, fuck. I did break something that like, what are they doing? I can't understand anything that they're talking about. And God, look how pretty she is. I hate it and I love it. And look how just lovely and beautiful that Acromo is, even with her ugly, ugly little fins.
And her twin tails that won't bend in any of the right directions.
So she is annoyed because he doesn't speak enough to get the chip. And this is when the English chip. He comes out of that water and she
like coaxes him. She's like doing a bit of a flirt and she goes and she sits with her feet in the water.
Seducing him.
Yeah. And he's like, interesting. And he comes up like right in between her thighs. And she's like, she reaches out and she touches his gills a little bit, the fronds on his gills. And it's like Strange Love, remember where Beryl finds, his frill or whatever, and that's what makes him come? That's basically what happens with him. He's like, this is a very
horny.
Serious touch. This is like a nipple tweak or higher.
This is
this is like a ball sack
fondling
manipulation.
And she realizes that he's enjoying it a lot and she's distracted. And so she's like touching up on him and he's like, his cock pocket starts to open and he's like,
no, don't embarrass yourself.
And then she realizes what's happening and she slams that chip on the back of his head behind his little ears and gilly things.
And he thinks he's going to die.
Oh my God.
He goes like careening down into the ocean, writhing around. It's like when Ariel gets turned from a mermaid and splits her tail into two and you only see the shadow on the wall. That's what he's doing. He's just like down in the water. Hooey.
Yeah. So then the pain disappears.
But then it just stops.
But
yeah.
He is pissed as hell for good reason. And
he's so mad.
Get ready. It had been exquisite. The pleasure before the pain. He'd arched into her touch, wanting more, needing more, and the heat of her body had called to him worse than any siren song his kind had released into the sea. She was every temptation he'd ever had, all wrapped up in a body he should hate and a mind that was far too devious. Mira was dangerous. He knew that. And yet some part of him still wanted to keep her as his own. Punish her? Absolutely. He would punish her for what she had done. And then he comes out of the water.
Yeah, he starts that free willy jump again.
And this time he into her onto the ground.
Yeah. And he's on top of her.
And as he's about to kill her, she's like, wait, please stop.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that hurt you. But I had to.
And he's like, oh my God, I can understand you. And then he's like, how is this working? And she's like, I don't understand you, but I know you can understand me. And they're both getting a little horny because he has her hands above her head and is holding her down, and she's cradling his tail between her legs, and his gills are fluttering.
Oh,
they're going. And it was hot.
It was great.
And then
I can't say anything else.
He gets pissed off because she orders Bite, because he's like, oh, I should get more of these chips and take it back to my people. And she's like, absolutely not. And then she explains to him, I need you to talk so that my little servant, Bite did not appreciate being called a servant.
How dare you?
Bite's like,
I thought we were pals.
And then Arius glares at him, and Bite's like, oh, okay, never mind. Murder mermaid.
And he's like, this is dumb. I'm not going to do that, basically. Arius is pretty resistant to it because he wants to get all of the information from her, but he doesn't want to give her any information to take back to her people. And he's already like, I'm sort of between a rock and a hard place here because I don't like the idea of killing her, but also she's seen too much. I think I have to kill her at some point. That's how this has to end. And Mira's understanding that as well at this point.
Mm-hmm. So then we have a little moment that was just very important to me because I don't like feet, but I love this scene where she is like, yes, you can explore my legs. And so he comes up on her and he's touching all up on her and like exploring her legs and her little toesies. And it was just very important to me. So many things about this book should have me running, screaming. And I love all of it. This book,
I don't know
what
spell did Emma Hamm cast on you.
I don't know.
Did she cure you? Do you think?
Definitely not. Because I did read a book where feet happened since this, and I was like, no, I don't like that. Don't like that at all.
Well, yeah, and it's so funny because he's like, there's bone in here, and they're like long and sturdy. I thought maybe she was injured, and that's why her fins were so messed up, and they didn't move in any other direction but the one. Oh my God.
But then she had trusted him to touch her, even wore that smile on her face, and he was humbled. She'd let him touch her, and it made him burn.
I burn for you. Oh my God.
And he is starting to not be horrified by her body. Like, because as lovely as he finds her, he still thinks she's disgusting. Okay. There's this constant back and forth. But now he's starting to be like, oh, I don't even see those strange little legs. It's all just a part of Mira.
Yeah, the scale is tipping right now.
So he also, now that he understands English, or not English, but whatever human language she's speaking, he is realizing that keeping her cold and wet is bad and she will die. And he makes a comment about how he's never had a more difficult pet in his life. And then he's like, well, I guess not a pet. I don't want to fuck pets, like.
Well, and Bite is able to tell him a little bit more too. Like, he understands his whale language a tiny bit. And so I've gendered Bite. Did you gender Bite?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I made Bite a boy. Did you make Bite a boy?
Me too. Bite's a boy.
I don't know why. Maybe it happened in the text and I just didn't notice. Anyway, so Bite is telling him she needs light, she needs vitamins, she needs like vegetables. She cannot live on just fish alone, and she needs to be warm and dry a lot of the time. And Arias is like, what? She's got light. Look at all these bioluminescent plants that I've supplied her with. It's right here. And he's like, no, she needs sunlight. She's got a severe vitamin D deficiency, and it's not good.
Yeah.
Oh, Mira's sick.
So when he gets back another time, he can smell Deos, his murder brother. Because, like, we keep calling Arias a murder mermaid. No. Deos is a murder mermaid.
Not even close.
Deos is fucking awful. And he's the hero in the second book. And it's amazing and fantastic and wonderful.
I don't know, Emma Hamm. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I bet you're going to win me over.
Witchcraft. It's beautiful.
I bet.
It's perfection. It's wonderful. I am this close to ordering signed copies of both of these books.
I think you should. These got past so many of your hard limits. I think you should.
I know. It is incredible. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. So anyway, he wraps her up because he's like, we got to go before Murder Man comes back. Like, you're not safe here. And so he tucks her toes into
his ball sack area.
Into his ball sack. Then they swim away.
Yeah.
And
she says, you have to bring Bite. And he's like, I will not touch that terrible abomination. She's like, yes, you will. And he's like, you're right. I absolutely will. Say no more.
He is
He's a goner. He's a goner.
And he doesn't even understand that he's a goner.
I know.
He's like, why am I doing this? Oh God, I hate her, but she's so beautiful. She's so lovely.
Oh, and even the sound of her voice is growing on him. Like he's fully Stockholming himself at this point.
This is like mutual Stockholm syndrome, right? Like they are both trapped in this impossible situation, and it's great. Okay, the lead up, the horny town to get to It's on TM is the buildup is just so good. So while they're swimming, this was just very important to me. He is cupping her butt. Oh and his hand is a little close to a certain area.
Her core.
And she's getting a little horny town, and he can smell something.
And like he smelled it before when she was touching his gills, but he doesn't really know what it means. He just knows that he wants more of it. He wants to find it.
And he can taste through his gills.
Yeah.
He can taste her in the water, and it's great. So then they get to this kelp forest, okay? He tucks her up inside of like a trumpet plant and then leaves.
It's like a prehistoric trumpet plant, right? This thing is like
ginormous.
Huge. And before this, he's like brought her some fresh water and she has no idea where he's gotten it from. And then when she goes up into this trumpet plant, he's like, you've got safety. It's warmer here. See these little pods down here? They have fresh water in them somehow. Do you see these teensy tiny little fish, these little guppies that swim around in here? They're so easy to slurp. You can just slurp them right up, no problem. She hates it.
Yo, she's horrified.
And then he's like, goodbye. And
he just leaves her because he has to go home and show his face. And so when he gets home, he finds out that the matriarch, Matera, has okayed Deos taking the pod and attacking Beta, the city.
With like no prep at all.
Well, and she even knows, she's like, I've seen, this is going to go terribly, but like.
They have to learn. What? Like everybody who's like really frustrated that they haven't been like doing anything really active and attacking them, they have to learn that it's for reasons. And so why don't we just like kill off a third of our whole pod? That seems like a good lesson.
Yeah. So because that's exactly what happens. Like a bunch of them die and he goes after them.
Deos,
loses an arm.
Deos loses his entire arm.
And he's so mad.
He's delusional.
And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go find that human.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get some fucking answers out of her. Buddy.
Which like, you're delusional, sir.
You don't speak human, Deos.
No.
So she is just hanging out in...
Man, she has decided she's living her best life on this reef, okay? With her rebreather, she can like hang out on rocks and she's watching sea turtles go by and she's like, I really don't want to slurp those fish anymore, but I bet I could find a
oysters.
mollusk. Yeah.
And she's just slurping.
She's just queen of the reef right now until she gets tackled.
By Murder Mermaid. Just obliterated, slammed into a wall. And Arias is like, what the fuck, bro? And attacks his brother. And now they're fighting. And then Machetes shows up. By the way, Deos is red. This was important to me. Machetes is
yellow.
Yellow. And it's just very, very cute. I love it a lot.
They're all the primary colors.
So Deos and Machetes leave. And Arias comes to her and is like, baby, are you okay? And like snuffles her up. And she realizes that he's injured and she's super concerned. And she has suddenly realized, oh shit, I kind of like this big dummy.
Oh no, I have feelings for him. I don't want him to get hurt. I want the best for him, is what she thinks to herself. And so he takes her to like another cave. And at this other cave, she asks Bite for the trauma pod that's in his side somewhere and gets enough healing goo to help, like, whatever fin got almost torn off, question mark? Is that when that happens?
No, not yet. Mm-mm.
Oh, not yet. Okay.
Yeah, so she like med kits him up, and it was super cute because he's like, nobody's ever taken such good care of me. Thank you for taking care of me. And it's so cute.
And also, she has to get all close to him and touch him while doing this.
Yes. Importantly,
all right, crazy eyes.
Very importantly, she is sitting in the water, and he lays his head on her lap, and he snurfles up because he can smell that smell. He's like, he can taste that taste.
It's getting closer. It seems really close.
And he can taste her musky scent.
Yes,
and he lights up like a fireworks show. All of his lights are like, and he like just snuggles up to her and cradles her hips.
She's running her hand through his hair, which also has like tentacle tendrils in it. It's like hair and tentacle tendrils. And it's one of those, I don't know, it's one of those moments where he's like, I've never felt so much comfort and care and sexiness and all the things at once.
Everyone needs to be taken care of sometimes, you know? He didn't. But looking up into those strange eyes, even if they were surrounded by white, he wondered if it wouldn't be too bad to be taken care of by her. This book is so swoony, y'all, okay?
It is.
It is.
Are we getting to the when we get to 70% yet? Are we there?
Yes, that's this chapter.
Okay.
So
okay, good. I thought so.
They've been exploring these caves.
Yeah, and she's been asking every once in a while, like, Bite, how are we doing on this language? And he'll be like, I'm so excited to tell you that we're at 2.8% of the language. And she's like, Bite, that is not exciting. And then finally, they're at 77%. And she's like, fuck it, I'll take it. Give me that chip. But she doesn't tell him.
Horrifyingly, she's like, ill, right? And then I had not considered this, but she's like, why am I having a mental breakdown right now? And then Bite's like, hey, Mira, when's the last time you had your cycle? And she's like, fuck. And then this was horrifying to me. She reaches into her wetsuit, is on her period. So now she has period blood all over her hand, and she goes to wash it off in the water, and Bite's like, no, you can't do that. No. Because something's going to come smell that blood and eat you. And so she just has to sit there
until it dries.
Her own period. And Bite's like, just wait until it dries and wipe it off. And she's like, what the fuck, Bite? That's horrifying. And he's like, I don't know humans. And I'm just like...
But, like, how did she clean her wetsuit?
No idea. I had so many questions.
That is never addressed. And I'm sorry, Emma Hamm. I had no scientific questions. I had a lot of questions about this.
This
did too. Was rough. I needed a denouement on this plot point, is what I needed.
My favorite headcanon for all of this, though, is that when he gets back, he goes feral because he can smell blood. And he's like, are you hurt? I will.
Yeah, that was never, he never smells her blood, and that's like, and he can smell everything, and he's never like, quick question, why is your cooch bleeding? You know?
Why do you reek, human?
Or is it your butt? Like, tell me what it is. Is it your cooch? Is it your butt? There's blood somewhere, human, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And anyway, yeah, like you said, so she gets the language chip, and she doesn't fucking tell him that she can understand him. So,
but he's like, guess what? We're going on a quick field trip. Put your rebreather on, and I'm going to take you to get warm. And she's like, oh, okay. So she puts her rebreather and her goggles on, and he takes her to a hot spring. And because he doesn't know that she can understand him, he's just saying every single thing that crosses his mind, and Sabrina will read you a couple of those quotes. They were very important to all of us.
Well, did you mention that she gets half naked? And she's like, don't look at me. But like,
no, I haven't. No, because the wetsuit keeps her warm when it's cold and cold when it's warm situation. And she's in his arms, right? Like, he's not going to let go of her because it is pitch black, I think, other than the bioluminescence. And the lava they can see in the bottom of those cracks of the hot springs. And so she's like, I'm just going to take this off on the top.
He takes off the top half of her wetsuit for her, and there's some nipple brushing, which I was not mad about. And she gets all horny, and to hold herself in place, she's digging her fingers into his hip fins.
And
she is rubbing up on that ball sack area.
Yeah, and he's narrating all of this, being like, oh, wow, you don't understand what an intimate touch this is.
When I first saw you, I was certain you were monstrous. Your people are so different from my kind, with your two tails and your strange white eyes. There was nothing I thought I could find tempting about you. But then, every day that you've been with me, I have found something new to admire. The graceful sway of your hips, the way your eyelids widen and then droop halfway closed when I do something you like. I wish to touch all of you, to find every part of your body that makes you gasp or hiss. I want to know the sounds that come out of your mouth when I pleasure you. When you realize that the ocean itself would guide me into you and set a pace that neither of us could deny. My people believe that lovemaking is the purpose of the sea. I can smell how excited you are. I draw that scent into my gills and tuck it underneath my scales for times when I'm not by your side. Kairos. Mira, I grow so weary of seeking release in my hand.
And like, this poor man, he's writing in his diary, not knowing that the lock is broken.
She can understand everything.
And so like, when he's saying stuff like, oh my God, my hip fins, that feels so good when you do that, she'll like do it more, but be very innocent about it because he doesn't know that she is hearing him tell her that feels really good. I mean,
Mira,
it kind of
you're wrong for this.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but I also loved it.
I loved it.
Because he never would have been this open had he known. You know, he never would have said all these things.
Yeah, and so when they get back, she's all fucked up in the head because she's like, we can't be together. I want him too, but we can't be together. We probably won't even fit, you know? And they end up having an argument where she can understand him, but he doesn't know she can understand him. And they're like yelling at each other. She's like, I don't understand what you're saying, which is all a fucking lie. But he's like, oh, I was so mad during this fight because he's like, you want to know the truth, Mira? I was sent to like get information about you so that I can kill all the humans. And she's like, I don't understand what you're saying, but I bet you're saying that you stole me so you can get information and kill all the humans. And he's like, yeah, you're really good at this arguing thing. How do you know what I'm saying? Well,
and he says, you have ruined the ocean. Like, every time you build a city, every time you, Akromos, build a city, everything dies. Everything around it dies. You fill the water with rust and waste, and it's terrible for the ocean, and you don't do anything to, like, rehabilitate it. And so he's like, we want to get you out of here because you're literally killing the entire ocean. And, like, the environmental messages in this book, the obvious indigenous analogy that's going on in the book is just fascinating to watch play out, because she's like, no, we don't. How dare you say that? But when she gets more information, she's like, oh, fuck.
He's right.
Are terrible. Oh, no.
Yeah. And then at the end of this argument, she's like, well, joke's on you, bud, because I'm fucking dying. The ocean is killing me. And just leave me alone. Let me die in peace. Just go away. If you won't take me back to my city, just let me die. And instead of leaving, he comes out of the water after her. And he is prepared to destroy her because he's so mad. He's just so mad. But now he's crawled on top of her again.
Oh, golly.
And he's holding her wrists above her head again and thinking about how beautiful she is. Arias had never seen such a beautiful woman. He'd never known someone to meet him head on no matter what he did. She did not fear him, and that was intoxicating.
Oh.
So he trails his hand down her throat with his little claws, and he's like scratching up on her a little bit softly, and she's getting goosebumps, and he's thinking about how easy it would be to rip this blanket off of her and finally see her for the first time, and they're gazing soulfully into each other's eyes, and then Bite breaks in and is like, you need to be scanned. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so he scans her, and she's like a breath away from death.
Yeah, he's like, Mira, you have been misleading us. This is not right. You have a severe vitamin D deficiency, and like and she's been talking about how her joints have started hurting. Like, she's got scurvy. Everything that could be bad does go
Bitch
bad.
needs an orange, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's like, hey, she either needs like sunlight and all the things that the humans have access to, or you need to just take her directly back to the city so that they can give her some medicine. And he's like, I can't do that. I literally cannot do that. But he decides that he's going to go home and like see if he can get permission to change the mission.
So once he's gone, she is not doing so hot, and Bite, the projector's fixed on his little head.
Yeah.
And
he distracts her by telling her old stories
and showing her what the world looked like 150 years ago. And she learns about this woman named Alice Fairweather and her father, the creators of the cities underwater. This is from like 150 years ago. And it turns out that she was like, you can't keep... So she understood what was happening when the cities were built and that it was destroying the ocean. And Alice is like, Dad, we can't do this. But her dad was like, we're going to do this because
I'm going to be an important man come hell or high water. So it doesn't matter if I'm demolishing this entire reef to build a city here. Because she's like, Dad, we can find literally any blank spot in the ocean to build these cities. And he's like, no, demolish the reef. And so she decides to like go scout more locations for herself. And Bite tells her that she never came back. They assume she died.
Well, and specifically, they assume she's dead because the submarine comes back ripped open with claw marks all over it. And
not
they're like...
teeth marks, notably claw marks.
And then Bite is so fragile and sad and just hides away in its little box to grieve.
Yeah.
Alice?
Because there's more to this story, listener. Okay? There's more to this story that Bite is not telling us yet. The Trixie Minx.
So then we zippy zap to Arius, and he is in his little home, and he's like,
Coral City.
Matira, we need to take her back because she's going to die. And the matriarch is straight up like, then she dies.
Yeah.
And you can just steal another human. Right. And he's like, how about we don't do that?
I don't want her to die. And she's like, oh, you've grown attached to her. And he's like, that's crazy talk. But like, does she have to die? You know, like, I feel like no.
And now we get to quite possibly the actual most horrifying part of this book.
This was
the ancients.
Completely horrifying and frightening. Yeah.
So Matira's like, go talk to the ancients. And he's like, they're going to eat me if I go down there. And she's like, not this time. And he goes to talk to the ancients.
So he goes down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, okay? And he's like, these ancients...
I have goosebumps. This is so chills.
I mean... But seriously, and so these ancients are like these anglerfish that are the size of buildings.
The size of cities. They are as big as Beta. Horrifying. There's 3 of them, and they all talk at like in unison, and they're like,
yeah,
come to me, my child, let me show you the future. And
they don't like swim around or anything anymore. They're so old that they're almost like calcified in that spot. And so the Undines will make sacrifices every once in a while to like keep them fed. They'll like send shark parts down there and like maybe a casual whale, you know, down to keep these bitches fed so they don't get up and start hunting everything.
Yeah. And guess what? The way that he is shown the future is he literally gets shoved into one of their mouths and then he gets stabbed with something. And we see the first future, which is of her pregnant and swimming up to him and like laughing and looking so happy and like
she's
holding
wearing the same kind of kelp shirt that his mom always wore.
Because apparently sometimes mermaids wear clothes. I'm not really clear on when and when they don't.
About it. Yeah, doesn't matter.
The second future he sees, because he has two possible futures, is she's in a submarine. The Undine are attacking the city. The humans are attacking back, and
they're escaping. Everybody's retreating. They're going away.
And then he stabs her in the stomach. He rips open the submarine and stabs her, and she's dead. And
holy balls.
The ancients are like, you have to choose one of these. And he's like, or I could not. You know?
Or I'm going to be the main character of this story. Thank you so much. Like, let's not.
So he fucks off and goes and finds her. And when he gets there, she looks him in the face and she's like, the chip is enough. I can understand you now. And I can understand almost every single word that you say. And he doesn't say anything and just gestures her towards him, towards the water. And he says he wasn't sure what he would say to her first when they could finally converse. But what he ends up saying is, I'm terribly sorry, truly, deeply sorry. And she's like, I accepted your apology long before we could even talk. And she is like, there's no future for us because I'm dying. And that was always going to be the way that this ended. One of us dies. And he's like, absolutely not.
And he's like, pack up your shit, we're going. I've got a new place that I'm gonna take you to. It's the last place. It's a great place. So she gets bite and she gets like a few of her things, puts her rebreather on her, and then he swims and 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 swims.
Yeah.
And it's like up and the water's getting warmer. There's like light that's coming through, those like beams of light coming through the top of the ocean. And suddenly, out in the distance, there's like a submarine on a stick. It's
a big upside down fishbowl
on a stick.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. It's like in the bottom. And so he takes her there, and inside it's like covered in algae and stuff. But when they wipe the algae away, she can see that there's like an entire garden in there. There's a bed. It's like a full-on living space.
There's a bathroom with a shower.
Good God. And so he opens up the moon pit on that thing and throws her in there. And suddenly she's got a habitable space. And then we move into his perspective, and we find out that when he scouted this place, because he was like, I didn't know, but there were rumors of like my kind keeping acromos as pets. And
which is a lie. He just tells her that.
He tells her that. Yeah. But there were rumors that like weird shit was happening over here. And when he scouted it, he looked down at the bottom. Are you going to read it?
If you want me to.
Okay, read it, yeah.
Outside of the home, he'd found 2 skeletons. One that was clearly of her people. The bones of her legs had been eerily interesting. And laid out next to her were the bones of one of his own kind. A massive male with a tail nearly twice as long as Arius's. Speaking of his age and power, they had been curled up next to each other, almost as though the sea didn't even dare move their skeletons together, even in death.
It's like the ending of Aida, you know, when they get buried together and so they just start snuggling. They're like, we're going to snuggle until the air is gone.
So then he pops his little head.
And so then, no, I'm sorry, everyone. No, I'm sorry. In order to prepare the space for her, because he doesn't want to freak her out, he desecrates that grave hard. Okay. He's like, don't want to scare the human. He Swiffers those bones all up. I have no idea where he takes it. He doesn't tell anybody, but he desecrates that grave hard. Wow. And then doesn't tell her about it ever, which I found very interesting.
When he gets back, and she has cleaned up. She cleans up nice. She's in a little blue dress, and she like sees him and preens a little bit, and she's like, "Don't you like it?" And he's like, "It's fine. I can see your weird little flippers, though."
And she's like, "It doesn't matter the species. You fucking men cannot do a compliment right."
So he wants to take her back in the water, and so she goes and puts her wetsuit back on, and he can see her shadow with the light glowing behind her and her long, supple limbs. And he's like, "Oh, man, I like that I like that human. I want to fuck that human." But he doesn't. Sure. And then they have a cute little conversation about being a gentleman. And she's like, "Be a gentleman." And he's like, "We don't have a word for a good human, like a good person.
That's just a person. That's just a good person."
And she's like, "What do you call a bad person?" And he's like, "Dead."
Yeah. We call them dead. So then he takes her to a reef and
like
they watch they go on a walkabout date, and like they watch fishes, and she sees an octopus for the first time.
And he calls her darling, and he like, this was so cute. He like, while he's swimming, he's on his back, and he's like holding her above him and like basically flying her through the water like a little kid.
He's Supermaning her. It's so cute.
And she's super sad when she comments about like the storms, because the reason that the humans left the surface is because it was uninhabitable for them anymore. Like the storms are so bad, and there was no livable land.
Yeah, we polluted the upstairs until climate change made it untenable. And so then we were like, let's just go down below. We can't go to space, so let's just go down below. Let's go pollute there, down below.
And he's like, "I'll take you sometime because I will do anything I can for you to give you what you want. And everyone deserves to see where they're from at least once in their lifetime." And I found that so swoony.
Swoontacular.
And she's super sad when they get back to the fishbowl because she knows that he always leaves.
He's going to leave. He's going to go.
She looks at him and she's like, "I don't want you to go. I don't like being alone, but also specifically, I don't want to be alone without you." And then she realizes that she needs to be the brave one. And he comes up to her, and she's touching on his neck frills. And she's like, "Arius, do you know what a kiss is?" And he's like, "Oh, what?" I fucking love that. I love that in a book.
I love that trope. I love it.
And she's like,
so she teaches him what a kiss
show
is.
You. Boy, he likes it. He likes that mouth mating.
Changes his whole world. Boy, loves it. And then he's like, "Do you know what this means? Like, we're different species, and like, is it wrong or whatever?" And she's like, "If loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right." Basically.
And then they're interrupted by a bang bang on the fishbowl.
Jesus.
And he throws her up inside out of the water, and he's like, "Close the door behind me. Close the door." And then jumps into the water. It is his brother, Deos, and Machetes, and some other little blue bastard.
Some other dude. Yeah, some other idiot. And it's time to fight. They're here to be like, "You're going to kill her in front of us, or we're going to kill you," essentially.
Basically.
And he gets McKetties by himself, and he's like, McKetties, I can talk to her. Like, she's a person. We've believed that they are just, you know, this homogenous evil, and they're not. She is a good person, and I can get you a chip so that you can understand her. And McKetties is like on the fence, being like, I might be able to, like, you know, figure this out. And then kaploom.
Deo straight up Kool-Aid Mans into the room that McKetties and Arias are
because
in.
They're in an old city that's under the ocean now.
You remember when we had the conversation about things that horrify me?
It's an entire human village that got flooded. And it's just underneath there.
I don't understand.
It's literally every trigger. It's every single one of your triggers.
Hamm has bewitched me?
Yeah. She's a sorceress.
That's the only answer.
I can't think of another one for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Bewitched me. I don't understand. It's like she noodled into my brain, picked out every single one of the things I fear most in this life, and was like, not this time.
You're going to love it.
You're going to fucking love it. You're going to love it. So, Deos... This was awful.
Holy God.
Deos?
Yeah.
Because Deos is huge. Like, it is repeatedly talked about how fucking massive Deos is. And Deos straight up grabs Arias and chucks him up out of the water onto a bunch of coral at the top of it.
Like lava rocks.
Yeah, and it like slices Arias to pieces.
One of his hip fins, one of his little ball sacks is almost all the way off.
One of his ball sacks is ripped off.
Like, it's not great.
Yeah, it's not great. And he can't even, like, get back to the water because he's going to have to, like, crawl over all of this horrible, painful stuff.
Jagged...
And Deos pops up and he's like, I won't let you disgrace yourself, even if it means I have to cause you pain. And then he swims off.
Mind your own fucking business. Deos is the worst. Deos, you don't know better than anybody else. God, I hate you. You're
my God, the second book is so good.
I don't understand how I'm going to root for you to be happy, but I'm sure Emma Hamm, the Bewitcher, as previously mentioned, is gonna talk me into it.
Sorceress. And then McKetties pops up and he's like, this is a dangerous game for you to be playing. It's inevitable that we're gonna fight and kill these humans. And then he just fucks off. They just leave him there.
Yeah. They're like, bye, kill her or take her back. Those are your two options.
So then we're back in her point of view. And all three of them are basically tapping on the fish tank. The human tank.
I hate it.
Tappity tap tap.
Hate it.
Horrifying. And then they just swim away. They just leave.
Yeah.
And
hours later, he finally makes it down. And she hears like a tap on the moon pit, on the moon door. And she is like, okay, that sounds like Arias, maybe. She opens it up and he's just like floating down. He's passed out. He's too injured. Blood is everywhere. And so without thinking, she doesn't grab her rebreather. She doesn't grab her wetsuit. She grabs nothing. She just throws herself into the water and then pulls him back up into the moon pool and pulls him all the way into her house.
And then she's so grossed out because he does the
yeah
to get rid of the water in his gills. And it just makes me laugh because she's like, I'm so into this dude, but you're gonna go do that gross thing again, aren't you? And he's just like
horrifying.
Like a cat with a hairball.
Yes. It's so much. So she grabs an actual med kit and manages. She's like, this is going to hurt like nothing has ever hurt. And he's like, if it heals me, I don't care. So she starts with his neck frills and manages to put those together with goo. And then she gets down to his little like, hip fin.
I'm so worried about hurting you. Goo. And he's like, nothing hurts when you're touching me.
Oh my God. Sappy. Stop it with your charming self.
Sappy.
Get out of here.
So Then he tells her the story of what happened, and she is cradling him, and she's like, I'm so sorry for the pain that I caused you and for healing you. And she's like, oh my God, now you're shaking. And then she's like, wait, why are you laughing? And he's like, this was nothing. I have literal broken bones in my tail that never healed. It's fine. Thank you for taking care of me, though. And he just lays on the ground, and she curls up like a little cat on his chest. And he's just holding her and like petting her hair and running his hands
they both fall
up and
asleep.
down her. And even with all of the pain, she's like, this can't be comfortable for you. And he's like, you'd be surprised, Mira. Having you in my arms is the most comfortable I've ever been. You suave motherfucker.
Yeah. Lie to me more, Arias, okay? Then when she wakes up, he's flaking. He's gonna disintegrate. He's too dry. He's been dry for too long. And so she's like, oh my God, get into the ocean. Go, go, go. Let's get you out of here. He's like, come with me.
So then we find out what Kairos means, because that's what he always calls her, Kairos.
Yeah.
And she's like, what does that mean? And he's like, for us, it is a fleeting but crucial moment, an ephemeral rightness of time and place, a moment that brings you to where you were supposed to be. And she's but you've been calling me that for so long.
From the beginning.
And he's like, I know. Come into the water. And so she does. She hops in that water with him. And he's like,
with
I have
her
no
rebreather,
intention
notably.
of letting you go, Mira. You have captured my heart, stolen it just as you have my attention, my time. I cannot let you go. I would be denying my heart the reason it beats.
Yeah, because he says, because I've got that fish one, and that is the heart that is with my people, and then I've got that human heart, and that is the one that's with you. He literally says this, okay?
Well, and then they're in the water, and she's like, you've called, surely you haven't always known. And he's like, I will call you whatever I wish, Mira. Kairos, Acromo, mine.
And so she starts touching up on those neck frills. Well, and she says, hold on just a minute. If you like the way my fingers feel on your neck frills, get ready. She takes off her rebreather and she puts her tongue over those neck gills.
His neck ball sack.
Yes. And then she pulls back and like puts her rebreather back on. And he's like, I've never felt anything like that. Like that was otherworldly.
So she's like, we don't have to kiss. We don't have to be kissing. There are other ways to like feel good.
Touch and
soft touch and blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't really know what to do with himself because in his society, female
mer people,
Undine, are ginormous and they fight you constantly. It is not uncommon for you to walk away with scars that last the rest of your lifetime just to get your D in some pee. Like, horrifying.
Yeah. And so he tells her that like they battle the entire time they're having sex. And she's like, oh, we don't really do that. We do like softer touches and like it can be rough or whatever, but like there's no claws or teeth usually.
He's like murmuring as he's touching up on her too. He's like, humans like soft, humans like it soft, be soft, be sweet, humans like soft. And she's getting all horny because he's like licking up on those. I will never understand in romance novels when one character is like, you know how you have limited clothing? We're just going to shred it.
No, totally.
We're just going to shred it. So he shreds her bodice.
Dress. Yeah.
And he's licking up on that nipple. And then she's like, touch me elsewhere. And brings his hand down to her core. And he is so into it. His gills are all like, standing out.
Yeah. I found the source of that smell. And he goes to investigate further.
He shoves his neck gills into her pussy so he can taste her. That's what
he says.
He's snarfing up on it.
He's huffing her arousal.
He wants to hold on to it, get all that pussy juice right up under his scales for later.
Yeah. He can munch on it later. Absolutely.
A little snack.
And so then he starts munching her now.
Oh, yeah. He's going down like a champ.
And she's like, he doesn't know what he's doing, but points for enthusiasm.
And then she comes like a freight train. And she's like, I want to touch you too. But instead what he does is he turns her around and uses his tail to tie her feet together, basically.
Yeah.
And then fucks her thighs.
Yeah.
And she's like, something feels weird back there. She can tell that there's 2 cocks there. And she's like, you have 2 of them? And he's like, I have 2 of everything. And she's like,
and he's like, don't humans have 2? And she's like, for sure not. No.
Yeah. So then he finally lets her turn around and she's touching all up on him and it's too much for him. So he puts her down on the sand. Horrifying. But he puts her down on the sand and slowly starts to enter her while like with his tiny penis, the tinier one.
No, they're both the same size, I think.
Oh, are they?
I think they're both like giant.
I'm reading a lot
but here's
of books with multiple cocks right now.
That's fair. No, that's fair. So they're both huge dicks, right? But they're tapered at the end so that it's easier to like get used to as he's inserting himself. And he goes to town.
Well, no, the best part is he just sticks it in and just sits there.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, dude, I need you to move. Please move. So he does. He finally gets with the program.
So she moves her hips and he's like, oh no, this is everything. Oh my God. So he just starts jackhammering her into that sand.
And it is so good. And then he's like,
so good.
Was that acceptable? And she's like, that was perfect. And he was like, great. Because I have a second penis. And then he shoves that one in. And he's the entire time thinking about how perfect she is and like how wonderful, and she's realizing that she's in love with him, and it's just and then horrifying. They're headed back up to the dome. Okay. And when they get up there, he tries to push her out of the water and realizes that he's attached to her by the neck.
Oh, that's right.
One of his hair tentacles has stabbed into the side of her neck, but it doesn't hurt.
And it's like surrounded by goo in the puncture point. And like she felt a little pinch there, but you know, it wasn't enough to distract her at all. Actually, this happened to me the other day. Not this specific thing.
You got stabbed by Michael's hair tentacle in the side of the neck to help you breathe underwater? Wow. So how specific.
No, I had been outside for most of the day. Nothing happens, right? And then I come in and I'm like helping the kids get ready for bed. I kneel down on the ground and I can feel like a very sharp situation in my shin. So I'm like, that's weird. But like it hurt, but I was also like, you know, I've had worse, right? So I'm like, I get up and I'm like doing other things. And then I turn back around and there's just a dead bee there. I got stung by a bee in my bathroom. I have no idea where it came from, how it got in the house. I was outside the whole day, didn't encounter a single stabby bee. And then somehow I kneel on my bath mat and I get stung. Oh, but I was just like, it hurt, but like, you know, I've got shit to do. And Mira was like, that hurt, but I've got orgasms to have, you know?
Yeah. Well, so turns
then
out
Bite does a scan.
It's for breathing. This hair tentacle is basically a tube because apparently Undine exhale oxygen, breathable oxygen. We're
not even gonna. Nope. Here's the thing, listener.
Emma told us
he breathes in his gills, and then that hair tentacle does just shoot that air right into her windpipe.
And you know what? Guess what?
And
Emma warned us. Emma said, "No science.
No.
Don't think too hard about it." And I love
the way this is.
It was great.
Yeah. Well, and it happened instinctively. He didn't mean for this to happen. He has no idea what the fuck's going on. And Bite's like, you're helping her breathe. That means that she doesn't need the rebreather if you're with her. Mm-hmm. This is wild. And so they're both like, does this mean that our species is actually more compatible than anybody has ever thought because we've always been at war?
And then this is the turning point. He's like, I am going to forsake my people.
I'm done with them.
I will be back.
I'm like, Arias, did you have to forsake them to their faces? You know?
What did you just like never go
Couldn't
home?
You have just Homer Simpsoned into that hedge, you know? Slowly backed up.
Yeah.
No, he has to forsake them straight to their faces.
He walked up to that matriarch and said, get fucked, lady.
Yeah.
And
she's like, I saw this coming. Here's a trap. And she ties him up.
She ties him up. Oh, God.
And then everybody else is like, we got to get rid of that troublemaking Acromo, so somebody go and murder her to death.
This feels so unnecessary because she's hours and hours and hours away, right?
Yeah.
Like, he took her to the other side of California, right? This is like a 4-hour drive. Okay. What a joke. California's way longer than 4 hours.
Yeah, right? Oh, I thought you meant width-wise. That could be 4 hours.
Yeah, maybe. So why couldn't they just leave it's not like she can get out.
She'll die at some point.
Yeah. Just leave her. Just leave her. But they're like, no, we're going to send somebody to kill her. And he's like, let me choose. Or the matriarch is like, I will let you choose who to send to murder your mate.
What?
And he chooses
so he's
McKetties.
Like, McKetties. Get over there because, like, he knows that he's the weakest. He's the weakest minded.
He's the most curious.
Yeah, he can.
And McKetties is the third book.
I mean, of course, right? Of course.
I cannot wait. He is a golden retriever, and I am so fucking ready for his book. It is expected to be out in the next couple of months. It says by November, and I am dead.
Shit, that's exciting.
Uh-huh.
So McKetties does go there, and she's having a full-on conversation with Bite. Oh, what's up?
Yeah, go.
Oh, she's having a full-on conversation with Bite, and this is when Bite actually reveals all, including but not limited to the fact that Alice didn't disappear. This dome was built for Alice by her father because she fell in love with an Undine and wanted to be with him for the rest of her life. And so her father, like, helped her disappear. And
Bite.
And the reason that he got sent out into the wilderness of the ocean is because they wanted to keep it under wraps, and he was the only droid who knew. And droids are really bad at lying. So they were like, you gotta go, bud. You gotta go where no one will ever ask you any questions.
Go. Get out of here. And we find out that Bite wasn't pushing for her to go home because he could see the way that she looks at Arias and the way Arias looks at her. And he recognized it because of the way that Alice and her mermaid looked at each other.
And he projects their images on the wall, and so she can see, like, their dynamic together. And she's, like, dancing in her dome, and he's laying on top of it, just watching her frolic. I cannot. They're so cute.
Oh my God.
Everything about them is so cute.
There is not a single thing about this book that I don't like. Everything is perfect. It's perfect. This is a perfect.
Well, and then Bite out of nowhere is like, oh, P.S., take this chip. You're going to need it because that murder merman behind you doesn't look very friendly. And so she takes it and she turns around. She just lunges.
And just slaps him on the side of the head with that chip. And he's mad.
He's big mad. Oh, he's so mad. But then as soon as he's just about to murder her, he realizes that she gave him, language comprehension. And he's like, oh, no. And so she basically is like, there's no reason for you to kill me. And like, where is Arias? Is he okay? I care about him. And he's like, oh, this is so stupid. I've got this responsibility to my pod, but like, you're a person and that is inconvenient for me. And like, Arias cares about you.
He literally
so
tells her that.
You. Yeah.
You are inconvenient.
Yeah. So he's like, I can't kill you, but I can return you to your people.
Well, specifically what he says is, I'm taking you home. And she's like, oh, to Arias? And he's like, no, human, you fucking idiot, to your city. And then he yoinks her into the water.
McKetties, this was unnecessary.
And just drags her like
by like the wrist.
The wrist? Yeah. And then when they finally get there,
she's got like her shoulders out of the sockets.
And her rebreather stops working, and he's like, well, that's as far as we're going. Good luck.
Deuces. I'm McKetties. Bye.
Yeah.
And when we leave her perspective, she is banging on a window where nobody is. Like, nobody's behind that window, banging, trying to get somebody's attention before her rebreather kicks it, and then we're gone. And then we find out that Arias has been tied at the bottom of the sea for weeks.
Weeks. And everyone, like, he can hear when McKetties gets back, because he can hear everyone in the city like, oh, how'd you kill her? Did she look funny when she was drowning? Bro.
Yeah. Tell me the sound she made when she died.
Yeah, and McKetties is just like, like, they're awful. So he's distraught.
Devastated.
Every couple of days. So all of his people think that she basically poisoned him.
Bewitched him, yeah.
And the matriarch, Matira, comes every couple of days to feed him and be like, are you back to normal? Are you back to normal, dude? And he's like, no, never. I love her. And like,
Arias, like a little bit of clandestine, you know what I mean? Like, just try.
But my honor.
What?
Like, bro. So McKetties pops up. And he doesn't get too close, because he knows that if he gets too close, Arias is basically playing dead on the bottom of the thing. And then McKetties shows up, and Arias is like, you killed her. And McKetties is like, no, I didn't. I took her back to her city and she was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Arias, lie. Tell a little white lie so that you can get free.
And go get her.
Yeah.
Go get her.
And then
Arias is like, what? Lie?
Mm-hmm.
How could I possibly lie?
But my honor.
I couldn't possibly. Oh my God.
Dude, suck it up. So he also finds out that the humans are like interrogating and abusing the shit out of her. And he's like, okay, fine. I gotta lie. So he calls Matira in. And he's like, I want to kill these humans. I'm going to do it. And she's like, I don't believe you. And he's like, guess what? Let me tell you all the secrets about the human city. We're going to launch an attack.
Let me tell you about a moon pool. Yeah, we can get in from the bottom, turns out. That's what I found out from that stupid Acromo. And so she's like, all right, I believe you. Take everyone. And then when he gets there, he switches up the plan. And he's like, we're not going to go in there and like lay waste. What we're going to do is we're going to be more stealthy. We're going to get in the moon pools. We're going to get weapons. We're going to get other stuff from them. Technology, fire maybe even. We're going to get all that stuff so that when we actually attack them, we're a match for them and they don't just obliterate us with their fire guns, you know? And then
now
he's
we're
like,
from her point of view.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because she's getting beat to hell in a room with a window that looks out at the water. And this dude, who is supposedly from City Alpha, this dude is beating the shit out of her. And he's like, my plan worked. How interesting. And she turns around and he's just there on the other side of the glass. And it's awful.
And he points at the guy. And he's like, you're toast is what you are as soon as I get in there, dude. And the guy's like, oh, you could never get in.
And he just is straight up villain monologuing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he tells Arias, not knowing that Arias can understand him, that he's going to chop her up into teeny tiny pieces and feed her to the fishes. The sharks are going to have a great day afterwards. And then he takes her into a room with no windows.
And he takes her into that room and then he stabs her in the stomach, cuts up and down all of her arms, and then just chunks her in the water. He's like, I'm sending that Undine a message, and you're the message.
Who are you,
And then she gets dumped in the water. And before she blacks out, though, Arias grabs her and he's like, let me be your breath.
Yeah.
And he does stab her in the neck with that hair tentacle.
Well, because that is a permanent thing. He permanently marked her, like she's got a constant portal for air. That goo situation is always there now, so that the tentacle can easily find its entrance point. And earlier she was like, I kept on like trying to pick the scab, and Bite was like, maybe don't, because maybe then it'll never go back and you'll be breathing out of your neck weird for the rest of your life. Like, cool it.
So,
oh my God,
he's desperate to get her safe. He needs to stay here to lead his people, but he goes up to one of the lady mermaids, and he's like, you're the fastest one here. I need you to take her. And she's like, but I want to fight. And he's like, save my woman. And so
and she's like, say no more.
And the funniest part is he swims up to her.
A Google Maps.
He just takes that lady's hair tentacle and just shoink, and
shoves it right in there.
She's like, what the fuck? And he's like, you gotta breathe for her. You gotta breathe. And she's like, this is the weirdest fucking thing that has ever happened to me, but fine. And so she does. She takes off like a little torpedo, and now she's gone.
Yeah, and because her instructions are to take Mira back to the dome and like get that med kit on her, put that healing goo all over her body wherever she needs it. And then he's like, it's fighty time. I'm going to kill some bitches is what I'm going to do. So they use those welders or whatever, and they get into those moon pools, and they just start throwing people against walls as they army crawl with their claws.
This is literally my worst fucking nightmare.
They're just dripping. They all go skadoosh all over the floor, and then they're army crawling out of the...
And then they're just like, get them, boys. And so he chases that dude all the way through the building, and the dude jumps into a little submarine and tries to escape, and Arya straight up hops in after him, rips the top of the submarine off, and then he looks at him and says, this is your problem as a human. You never know when to stop. And then he rips the dude's arms off of him and leaves him for the sharks. Love a man who murders for me. You know?
I was enamored in this moment.
It was beautiful.
I'll tell you that much.
But then now it's time to go find his lady love.
Wait, no. After this, nothing makes sense at all to me, Melody, and it's not scientific. Okay. After this, we get like a recovery montage from Mira, where she gets to the point where she can walk, and then she gets to the point where she can work out. Like, the lady Melita breathed for her for like 3 days or something. Bananas in that pod.
The moon pool doesn't close anymore in her fishbowl, which is horrifying.
Why is that, though?
So there was something about before they could go attack the humans, they had like a bunch of them went to her fishbowl and like rebuilt a bunch of stuff and tore a bunch of stuff apart. And
what? Like,
I didn't understand.
On the moon pool?
I think. I don't really understand.
It doesn't matter. Who knows? So then weeks go by, and now she's just like a regular human mermaid lady.
Because she's under the impression that he's never coming back to her.
Well, because McKetties sometimes comes and visits, and he's like, yeah, he's busy right now. He's just doing other stuff. And she's like, and then what? Nobody thinks to tell her.
She's just doing a little swim, and then he shows up, and you know what? Good for you, girl. She turns around and just smacks him in the chest, and she's like, where have you been?
No, it is worse than that. I'm sorry. This fucker just gives her away while she's bleeding out to another mer person, makes everybody else take care of her like she's a hamster and he's on vacation. And then the very first time he comes to see her, he decides to say hello by like diabolically pulling her pigtails. He pulls her rebreather off of her face and then goes ka-chunk right in there with his tentacle. And she's just like, I mean, like, she thought it was a shark for a minute because he hit her while doing all of this. And she's just like, what the fuck? Like, what is the matter with you? And also, where have you been? And he's like, I had to do some things. And she's like, no!
So she, like, unplugs and tries to swim away, and then he catches up to her and plugs back in, and he's like, and she's like, no, fuck you, and unplugs again and swims away, and then he plugs back in, and he's like, you feral little creature. And
I love that.
He's like, I've been here. I've just had a lot of things to fix, you feral little creature.
And he says, I've been here, but only when you were sleeping. And I was wondering, like, was it because he couldn't come inside and he couldn't smell like her? Like, why would he only come visit her while she was sleeping and not ever tell her that he's around? And then he's like, did you doubt my affection while I was gone? And she's like, yeah.
And he's like, so I didn't want to come back until I knew that everything was safe for you. Okay, like, I needed to do this and that, and apparently a bunch of the Undine have, like, left their pod and come, like, they're creating a new pod by her fishbowl, and
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, a bunch of them live near her now. That's why they're all there. A bunch of them, like, left their pod to come
is
be
Deus
there.
Is he or is he not? Tell me to my face right now. He's not, is he? Does he go to a different city?
Of course he
is. Okay, good.
And
okay,
like,
cool.
They've all started like living in the houses under the sea, which is horrifying, and I hated every aspect of it, and I hated all of it. It's literally my worst nightmare. It's fine. And like, some of them have little houses in the Kelpie forest, and she finds out that he did murder that dude who was abusing the shit out of her and beating her up.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't send you away. I had to go back and kill that guy to send a message to anybody that I will murder them to death if they touch you. And she immediately gets turned on and he can smell it. And so he's like, you should not have that reaction when I tell you that I murdered a man in your honor. And she's like, what other reaction would I possibly have? And I was like, yes, Mira, that is correct.
And then he's like, I would give up everything for you. And she's like, but I don't want you to give up everything because I like these Undine.
Right.
Like, let's try and forge a better future for all of us.
Right. Yeah, you got like a snapshot of what could be possible, but maybe right off screen, McKetties was over there like gathering shells, you know? Like, we don't have to be alone in order to be together.
And then he says to her,
oh my God.
So your plan is to work with the Acromos then? You want to make a deal with them? My plan is to bring you to a grotto and fuck you where the water is warm and you can be comfortable. I want to hear the sounds you make again, this time with nothing standing in our way. I want to know that you are mine and I am yours. And then while they're swimming away, she's like, guess what, buddy? I want to pleasure you all the way. At the same time.
I think I can accommodate both of your cocks.
He's like, that's not how that works. And she's like, maybe not for an Undine, but I got 2 holes down there, buddy.
But you're with the lady human. That's what you're with.
So while they're swimming, she's like licking up on his neck gills. And then they're at the grotto. And she wants to see and taste more of him. So she's like sliding down his body. And he's in shock, but is definitely
he has no idea
into
what to do
it.
with this.
One of my favorite fucking tropes in an alien or a monster book is when you cannot do something with a person of your own species, and then the human just rocks your fucking world. Because why would you trust putting one of your dicks in one of the feral female Undine? In their mouth.
Yeah, where like their whole deal is to like hurt and scratch and I don't want that anywhere near their mouths.
Yeah, and he's like horrified at first, and then he's like,
he's like, what are you doing?
This is awesome. You and your little human mouth. This is fantastic. But then it's too good. So he does rip her up and shove his face in her. And now he's going down on her.
Okay, here is the next sex scene logistics that I was very confused. I can't remember what it was in the first sex scene that I was like, I don't really understand how this is happening.
I know what it was in the first sex scene.
What was it?
When, for me anyway, it was when they were describing where the cocks were, he like flips her over and it was like, wouldn't the other penis be touching a different part of you? Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it was. Yes. Yeah, exactly. But now, so he puts her on his shoulders so that he can eat that pussy. And then it says she bent backwards so that his cocks were where she wanted them. She allegedly starts like blowing him and jerking him off while bent backwards.
So I rewrote that scene entirely in my head, and she flipped around.
She just got turned around, right?
Yeah.
She turned around. Everything was fine. So because then later on at some point, he's like, I'm going to enter you or whatever. And she's like, so I turned around and then I was face to face with him again. And I was like, you've always been it's fine.
Yep. I rewrote the whole scene in my head. So now we're having some like underwater 69 and I was not mad about it. It was fantastic. And then she gets flip-flopped around again and it's time for that DP, and he's like,
promise of the premise, listener.
My God, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And
she agrees. She comes like a freight train.
Oh yeah, because apparently humans in beta talk to each other and they're like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do like double penetration, but unfortunately you have to have two people for that other than yourself, and like, what a hassle. And I'm like,
not anymore.
Fair. Nope.
Not anymore.
So they both come like freight trains, and he's inside of her and he says to her, you are a gift from the sea, Mira, a rare pearl I am so lucky to have found. I do love you, you know, more than anything else in this world. You hold my soul in your chest. Wherever you go, I will never be far from you. And then she whispers, I love you. No matter how different we are or where we came from, you are mine, Arius, and I am yours.
Oh, swoontacular. I just need everybody, listener, I need everybody to know that during this scene, Sabrina was like, I'm going to take you to the grotto, and they swim and swim. The thing that's actually described as their fucking is that anywhere you turn, there's just blue as far as the eye can see.
It's awful. It's fucking terrible. When I say I rewrote that scene in my head, I took what I wanted from that scene and I just rewrote it in my head. Terrible. Emma Hamm, sorceress.
I don't know how she did this for you. Okay, tell me about the epilogue. Is that when they're all they move pods?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're all chatting and figuring out what the game plan is, and it's because they're like, it's time to take these to the cities. And Arius is like, I need you to talk to my people so you can explain some stuff. And so he plugs in, and they go for a little swim to his people who are living around her now. And she's like explaining the cities and how they work. Before any of this happens, though, she has an implant chip, and she goes up to Deus. And she's like, can I give this to you? No, can I give this to you? It'll hurt. And he's like, he just nods. And she plops it on, and he's the only one who doesn't writhe in agony. He just accepts it. He just,
oh my God, stop it, Deus.
He's so
stoic. You're too much.
And then she said, she's like in her head, she's like, so much has changed, and I'm even sad for Deus that he lost his arm, because like he was, you know, the most powerful Undine, and now he's missing an arm. And then the new plan that they decide on, and Deus is the one who's going to be doing the plan.
He's the ringleader.
They're going to steal the general of Alpha's daughter
Oh my God.
And get her on their side. And that's
with
the premise of book
Dick and Downs. Holy
it's so
shit.
good. And she is amazing. Anya is wonderful and like so
I believe it.
Cool. And and seeing Deos's perspective on a lot of stuff is like
yeah.
So the end.
End.
This is
I will be reading Deos's book.
Yeah, you better. You better.
I love this book so much.
Like, I wish I should have said this at the very beginning. Like, if any of that sounded interesting, put this podcast down. Go read. Run. Don't walk.
Sure.
Go. It's just so good.
It's so good.
All right, Mal. What's your lady love?
All right, Sabrina. What's your lady?
I got to you first this time.
My lady love is audiobook box sets. Boy, this weekend and earlier this week, I borrowed a legit wood chipper. I've never been so excited about something in my life. So I've been chipping up everything in my backyard that needs to be chipped. And during that, I was like, I need something to listen to, you know? And luckily I have headphones that would get up to like a level where I can mostly hear stuff when the chipper's going.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I wonder what Melody did while she was wood chipping. And the answer is blow out her eardrums.
That's exactly. I mean, I was going to blow them out anyway. You know, I may as well do it with hot BDSM sex with Mafia boys and security boys.
Okay.
So, okay, here's what happened. I got into my Hoopla and I found out that a couple of authors have put some box sets in there. And one of them is Made for the Mafia series by Erika Wilde. It's 3 books and it is so fun. It's all about these brothers of this mafioso. It's Heartless Sinner, Ruthless Sinner, and Reckless Sinner. And they were just like the most delicious little bites of wonderful smut that I could listen to. And it was just like boom, boom, boom. These books are back to back. And then I listened to another one called The Complete Boyfriend series by Carly Phillips and Erika Wilde. And that was really fun. That's 4 friends that are fantastic. Those are Big Shot, Faking It, Well Built, and Rock Solid, all in a row. Boom, boom, boom. And then I listened to one called the Indecent series by Erika Wilde. I did just start searching Erika Wilde on Hoopla because I figured she would have more box sets, you know what I mean? So then I listened to that. And these are alpha. All of them are like alphas that are like in touch with their feelings, but also like need to dominate. Okay, they've got to dominate. It's the only way things can go. They're kinky. They're fun. All of the ladies are like, take no shit. This is who I am. I really liked all of them. So that's my lady love is audiobook box sets. And do you need to chip some shit up? Because I'll tell you, I might have cuts all over my arms, but it was so fun.
Oh, I believe it.
Highly recommend. I fucking love that shit. Okay, what is your lady love?
Deos's book, Song of the Abyss.
Oh my God.
My lady love.
Song of the Abyss, eh?
Song of the Abyss. It more specifically, it's thinking a book is coming out later than it does.
Yeah. Like, that's great.
It was set to come out in like September or October. And when I tell you that I pulled up Whispers of the Deep and I went to
more series
at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because it's a KU. It popped up and was like, do you want to download the next book in the series? And I was like, shut the fuck up.
Stop it.
Shut the fuck up.
Don't play with my heart, KU. Don't play with it.
Clicked that and I did not go to bed until 3 a.m. that night.
Oh my God. Have you finished it? Are you done with it?
No, because I had to read for a book for TBR. And so it's on pause. Or it's like been on pause. I'm at 79%. I will probably, after we get off here, I have 1.5 hours left in this book, and I will be shocked if I do not finish it tonight.
Yeah, that's a tonight book.
I'm just going to tank my sleep schedule. It's fine. This whole
I hear that.
full-time working remote thing, my sleep schedule, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
That was inevitable, though, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm sure I'll end up on some kind of schedule at some point, but, like, for right now, I'm just going to embrace my gremlin, you know? My sleep gremlin.
All right.
So anyway,
keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love putting those toes in that sensitive hip ball sack right on the guy that you're crushing on.
Also, love yourself as much as you love being bamboozled by an author into loving all of the things
that's
you
wild.
hate.
I still can't get over that.
I was having heart palpitations rereading this because, like, all of the descriptions, I was like, this is fucking awful. I love it.
I love it. I can't get enough of it. I mean, listener, I literally texted Sabrina and I was like, I don't know how you got through this first chapter. This is wild to me. Emma Hamm, you're a sorceress.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going back down the Emma Hamm rabbit hole because she has so many books. And I'm just...
Keep being a badass and give in to that tempting sorceress. All right, bye.
Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by Melody Carlisle.
Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, leave a nice review, and of course, tell all your friends about us, even if they don't read romance.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at heavingbosomspodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on Instagram @heavingbosoms, on TikTok @heaving_bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult.
Head over to our website to sign up for our newsletter, get our Reading Embrace printable, and check out my audiobooks at heavingbosoms.com. All right, we'll be back next week with more swoons and snark. See you then.